Welcome to Talking Insights. Today we're bringing you a special episode recorded live during the ESOMAR Congress back in Athens. We'll be diving into the cost of living crisis with Anne and Jana from Euromonitor, and they're the co-authors of a fascinating paper on how inflation impacts different socioeconomic groups worldwide. This is a topic that affects us all, so stay tuned for insights that go beyond the numbers. Let's get started. Welcome to Talking Insights. We're here today with Anne and Jana. You're presenting a paper here in Congress, right?
Yeah.
About the cost of living crisis.
Yeah, it's actually our both.
That's cool. Yeah,
Paper,
that's great.
yeah.
I read a bit of the paper. It's really interesting. It's not like market research or qual and quant and like all the general topics that we talk in these types of events. It's interesting how you're like kind of stepping out of the box and talking about something different. So I wanted to, get to know you a bit better and like our audience to get you know a bit better as well. So I was going to ask you like if you could just like introduce yourselves firstly and like, a bit about your paper.
Hi, it is a pleasure, privilege to be here and recording this podcast with you, Antonio. My name is An Hodgson, and I'm the head of consumers research at Euromonitor. In our job, we produce thought leadership content on socioeconomic and macroeconomic aspects, very different to, like you said, a lot of the quant and qual that we see, quant and qual insights at ESOMAR. And over the past couple of years, one of our key research focus has been on the topic of high inflation and the cost of living crisis, which is front of mind for so many of us all over the world with everything that's been happening over the past couple of years.
That's interesting. And Jana, you also helped on the paper, right?
Yeah. It was co-written by 4 people. So Anne, me, myself, Connor, and Maria. Really international paper in a sense because 3 of our offices, of Euromonitor's offices, were involved. Me, myself, I worked together with Anne, producing consumer insights and different topics, and we combined so many methods, so many sources to come to this whole picture, to see from different angles, and to see, moreover, how we can apply our research to, real life, real problems, real situations. So, that was exciting about this research. And it was also kind of a way where we got beyond researching average consumers. It's more about segments, different segments. So we were able to cover those low income consumers that are often underrepresented and not a factor of this general research. So I'm really excited about this paper and about this presentation tomorrow too.
That's cool. And so when you envision creating this paper and talking about the cost of living crisis, you mentioned that you have a few offices around the world. Did you take notes or inputs from those offices on this living crisis, or did you pick one location and study that location? How did you create that?
I can answer. Actually, our research is global, vast, broad, right? So we researched each question in a little bit different manner. So, for example, the first research question, which was how do different socioeconomic groups experience cost of living squeeze? It was research across more than 100 economies, more than 100 countries. So it's pretty vast. Right. And we took different types of data, different methods. And like I said, we combined and saw how each segment in each of geographies, how it's doing. Right. Then for the second question about the response, we also take the focus countries. I think that was 17 economies. Then we focused to eight economies, and again we saw how different segments are doing there. So it's it's vast. It's not one office. Although in the second half of 2022, the situation was so clear and near and dear to me, because I'm coming from Lithuania, and over the past years we have been those bad leaders in double-digit inflationary environments. So yeah, it was pretty important. I was pretty curious about this too.
And in what ways do you think like business can either learn or evolve their ways to, I don't know, go to market, or like either the strategies they want to address, and adapt those according to this living crisis? Do you, I don't know, like how do you think like business can adapt their strategies?
Let me kind of take back a little bit as well, in the sense that part of this topic, the reason why we studied this topic was in response to our clients as well. So what Jana will present tomorrow, one of the key methodology is to develop this index whereby it measures the impact of inflation on different income groups, and that is in response to businesses, companies that come to Euromonitor to get strategic advice and recommendations. And what this index does is, because it measures the impact of inflation on different income groups, it is a strategic tools for our clients to empower them with targeted pricing strategy. So different. It's not increasing the price across the board for all clients, for all consumers, but it can be a bit more nuanced than that. So that is one of the strategy that we are recommending our, that we see a lot of companies are applying rather than just purely raising prices, passing on price increases to consumers who themselves are really facing the impact of the cost of living crisis and not being able to absorb the price hikes.
And do you think that like in the future or in the near future, companies will tend to oversimplify this problem of the crisis of the housing crisis and the cost of living crisis? Do you think like companies will oversimplify it?
I think those who oversimplify it would not be those who are in the pole position to succeed in the future. From our research, and also survey with industry leaders, industry professionals across so many different industries, B2B as well as B2C, consumer packaged goods companies, what we found is that companies are really not oversimplifying this. They are taking this seriously. They are those who are winners. They really want to be partners with the consumers, to really be the partner with the consumers to find a joint solution to help the business win, as well as helping consumers alleviate the impact of the cost of living crisis. So we see things like businesses are innovating, trying to be more transparent with their value proposition. They want to be to diversify distribution channels to really, maximize the value and cutting cost. So innovations like that are really helping them to overcome the impact of high inflation and the cost of living crisis without purely passing the burden on to consumers who are struggling themselves.
Yeah. And do you think that the consumers are starting to notice that shift and that change in the companies as well?
Both ways. Sorry, I just both ways. I'll just comment on the one aspect that those who oversimplify are those who are losing the loyalty of consumers. So actually, you and I, we go to the supermarket. If we see shrinkflation, we see smaller size packaging, we see price increases. I notice that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And do you think that the media and all the news and the way that the cost of living crisis is portrayed, especially in the media, is also affecting the strategy of the companies?
I think, yeah. And what we see from our surveys, it's yes. We have held consumer surveys through 3 years, 22, 23, 24. And, in 24 particularly, we see that consumers are optimistic about their financial conditions, health, literally everything. But at the same time, they're still very cautious, even those consumer and those geographies, countries where they were lucky enough not to feel the squeeze, they still faced rapidly growing consumer income. So even those countries, even those consumers, they still overtake this overall population sentiment of cautiousness, of consciousness, of selectivity, and they start spending their money in different matter. So it's pretty much there to stay.
As I said in the beginning, it's interesting to have different topics and different approaches on not just the regular market research and the way that people are doing research and focusing on these matters, because at the end of the day, it affects us all, one way or the other. I think it's really interesting. And I was wondering if you have I don't know, any ideas of how consumers can not save money, but learn from this strategy that companies are kind of evolving, and how they can go in the future with that. Do you have any advices or something like that?
That's like the COPE aspect in your research paper, isn't it?
Yeah, but consumers have already. We can say consumers already adapted, right?
Yeah, yes, rather than actually adapt. So this is really cool. In Jana's paper, she talked about 3 phases of how consumers deal with the, I keep saying the cost of living crisis, but it's still quite an important topic. I know that inflation is starting to slow, and people talking about reducing. Central banks are starting to talk about reducing interest rates, but it is still a really important, it is still a really relevant topic. And so you see consumers go through shock to coping, and we're all cutting back with our spending and, really reduce, really kind of coping. And then now we come to the other side that we adapt. So we it's not just about cutting back. We're still not being extravagant or anything, but we would not forego little indulgences. We would still allow ourselves to trade up, trade down in some categories in order to trade up in other categories. For example, maybe people might choose to not go out, not to eat out, but then when they have a dinner party at home, to entertain at home, then they trade up. They would recreate the restaurant experience at home. So that kind of behavior, we are now going through to the 3rd phase of.
That's interesting. Yeah, I talk to myself. My experience is what you're saying. As soon as I have people home, I want to entertain. We got a nice bottle of wine. We get nice foods. Well, we prefer to do that instead of just going to a restaurant or an expensive one. Obviously, those are good experiences, but I feel people are more moving into a communal type of thing in their homes, in their safe space for My other question would be if do you think this is a cyclical thing? We had kind of the similar problem in 2008, and now we're doing back again. Do you think this is something that's going to be cyclical in the future, or people will evolve? I keep using this word, but it's kind of one of the things about the Congress. In the end, humans will evolve into something better. And that's why I'm kind of using all these words. But do you think like in the future we'll evolve into not having the cyclical moments and having a more prepared experience for the next crisis?
Which is why we are here getting together and bouncing ideas and having these kind of conversations, isn't it? And one of the big topic in this ESOMAR from last year as well is about technology. And I see that we got we all stayed at home because of the pandemic, but now we've got technology as well. So we kind of really quite like our safe space, and we don't need to go out. And of course, there is the high inflation, the cost of living crisis. So doing things at home is cheaper than doing things out. But yeah, technology is a huge enabler. So I don't think we will go back to the exactly the old way as we always used to be because of other factors like technology.
Yeah.
I did a client presentation recently, and we were just discussing this really interesting advertisement from Heineken recently, and they were talking. It was just this scene of this lady who was rushing back from work, navigating really complicated public transport options in the rain and traffic jam and everything, just to rush home in time. Sound like you know what I was thought about. And then I might as well finish the story the audience, for the listeners.
Someone might not have seen it.
Yeah, but that was really effective. And so she dashed back in front of her computer, went to the fridge, crack open a bottle of Heineken, and then socializing online with her mates.
Yeah. I feel like, eventually, like, we'll move into, as I said, like, technology will evolve into a point where, and as already done, like, even the kids nowadays, like, they prefer to watch the concerts on Roblox and, Fortnite and whatever, than going to, like, these big music festivals. I think people will eventually prefer to see streaming of the concert than, I mean, it's a different experience. I don't know, like, what's your opinion on that? But, like, there's different experience, but that's kind of a way to be present in the moment without actually being there. And I think, that's a valuable thing that technology is bringing us.
And then we might go to this blended experience as well, whereby you can be there, but you also have to be, like last year's ESOMAR, you had to be there, but then at the same time you needed the headset to be there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of so I think collectively we are still experimenting to see whether we are going back to the old way, or it's going to be blended new way, or just purely digital.
And do you think eventually technology will not fully solve, but at least kind of solve the cost of living crisis?
What do you think? It definitely would help, like as we can see in our survey of industry leaders, we see that businesses, they are heavily relying on technology, digitalization, diversing distribution channel, again leveraging AI and other technologies in the supply chains and so on, to help overcoming, to help them strategizing for the cost of living crisis without purely just increasing prices. If you look at the chart, this results from our industry, Voice of the Industry survey. It's just different kind of options, different priorities that businesses resort to in the face of the cost of living crisis. Then you can see that increasing prices is really, really low at the bottom of the chart. No one is really thinking about going there and damaging that customer loyalty and trust.
That's interesting.
And I think also technology kind of helps with this pursuit of value, right? I mean, nowadays consumers, they are not no longer looking for one value, right? Affordability, definitely. But beyond affordability, there is a list of values. Consumers really are evaluating these purchasing packages, let's say, and by purchasing packages, it's like product portfolios or service portfolios. It's communication, it's marketing, it's shopping journey. So they do evaluate all this package according to affordability, but according all those additional values, right? It's like quality, like durability, like sustainability, health, and positive emotions even, right? What you talked about, indulgences, right? So, and for each segment, the list of those values sometimes stays similar, but sometimes it's different. So companies nowadays, they need to do a lot of homework to suit those segments, right? And technology really helps with that. We see in this conference and overall convo going on that technology really helps companies to use those broad strategies to tailor their strategies to different segments.
Do you think the younger generations are more demanding than the older ones? Like, let's say that the 20-year-olds now are more demanding than the 20-year-olds like 20 years ago?
I think that 20-year-olds now, I'm not 20-year-old, unfortunately, but I think that those 20-year-olds now, they take a lot of technological things, let's say, for granted. Mm-hmm. It's there because it should be there, It's like sustainability. They also take that for granted, and they, in a lot of cases, that just refuse to pay because it's just a basic thing which should be there. Yeah. So in that sense, yes, I see that, and we see from our research that senior consumers, they're kind of more positive about things, and they maybe that technology is more difficult for them to get used to and get around to, but they are more positive about those things, and they are
Yeah, I think definitely. You do a lot of research about different generations in your work, but from our conversations and what I've read, I think younger consumers are definitely more demanding, more less loyal, and all of the above.
And this is not like
they're difficult.
They are very difficult and more difficult to bond for brands to establish that emotional connection and brand loyalty.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, this is not like an old man complaining about the young kids, but I think the young kids have like way more tools nowadays that that's why they're so demanding, because now they can see like way more the color spectrum than like 20 years ago, and now they require sustainability practices, affordable houses, or anything else, so there's a lot of caveats when the companies get to them, and the other way around. And I think that's really interesting.
And you are absolutely right. It's not about us complaining about the young kids, because they are more informed, they are more educated as well. So rightly so that they can be more demanding, because they have all that information thanks to technology, right?
They're right.
Yeah, they are. Right. So sitting here.
I mean, we're not complaining about that. Well, thank you very much for the conversation. It was really interesting. Unfortunately, like our conversations are always like so small and so short, but they're always like we can talk for hours and hours on these topics. Maybe in the future we'll have another episode with you, and we can discuss more about this. But until then, thank you very much for coming here and being on the podcast.
It's amazing. We really enjoyed this.
And for the ones listening, subscribe to Talking Insights either on YouTube or whatever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you out there.
You can't know the answer to a question without first asking it. But how do you ask the questions? More importantly, how will people answer them? That is where Question Pro comes in to support you, empowering you to build and deploy amazing experiences that collect clean and useful data. With our powerful online-based, built-for-enterprise survey platform, it is easy to create, collect, and act on your data. Create an impactful survey in minutes from scratch by importing an existing survey, or choose from over 350 ready-made templates that have been vetted by our expert market research professionals. Add as many respondent contacts as you want and share them through multiple distribution methods. Collect offline data and use white-labeled mobile apps to ensure data collection is extensive and up-to-date. Take advantage of our specialized services to manage enterprise projects, as well as the instances where the insights collection is complicated but imperative. Then, leave the rest to Question Pro. Sit back and watch us work magic as the data is analyzed and compartmentalized into functional insights automatically. Create role-based access reports in addition to exporting the data and insights into your proprietary toolset, allowing you to focus on what's most important, making smart decisions. Question Pro, survey software that gets the job done.